I'm with Kevin Jones. He was a child growing up at Mount Carmel, I think most of the time. And he was 11 years old in 1993 when things happened. And Kevin, I just wanted to ask you, what was it like to be a little boy growing up at Mount Carmel? And you all also lived out at a camp in Palestine for a while. So what was life like there?
Well, I mean, for me, what I remember was partially it was strict and there was rules and don't do this, don't do that. And then the rest of it was like living in a park, like just run around everywhere and do whatever you want, have fun, go fishing, biking, build a fort, climb a tree.
Great.
It's pretty good.
Did you ever get paddled?
I'm pretty positive I did, but I can't remember
Okay. But
anything
you don't recall like being paddled too hard or anything like that.
better, any specific one, except maybe the one where I didn't get paddled by Dave.
Oh, what happened then?
I think there was ants in the sandbox, and all the kids were supposed to stay out of the sandbox until we were told otherwise. And I think it was me and maybe one of my siblings and some other kids. We walked by the sandbox. We saw a couple of kids in there playing. So we just assumed it was okay. So we were going. There were about 6 to 10 of us, and somebody came out. We got David lined us all up. Like, he had this little boat paddle
Oh,
or a little canoe paddle. It was a little short, but I went in there when it was my turn, and I bent over, and he rubbed the paddle on my butt, swung it, and then rubbed it again. He's like, "You gonna get it? Are you gonna just basically stay out of trouble?"
mhm.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's like, all right, get out.
Okay. And so you went inside for the paddling. Where were you were in the house or where were?
Sleep somewhere in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a small room off of the kitchen store.
Did you um did you stay up and watch some of those movies that he was showing at night?
See, I didn't know where I belonged because of an incident where my brother and I got the pool when the women and kids were in there. It was, as far as I know, the first time that they had used the pool. And David found us and came and made us get out, told us we were too old.
The boys. They made the boys get out.
So we were too old to be with the ladies. So eventually I started working, doing like construction and stuff with the guys. And then that made it where I got to be first in line with the men to eat dinner and or meals. So just assumed that I was an adult. So I chose to stay in there and watch several of the movies when the kids were removed.
Mhm.
And one time they turned the lights on for a restroom break, and David saw me. And so he got on to me and asked me why I was still there. Well, I thought I was a man. I'm supposed to be in here if I wanted to.
Mhm.
He help grounded me to my room for 3 days. It wasn't fun.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember which movie that was.
So was it one of the war movies or you don't remember the movie at all?
It probably was the one war movie I remember. Because I remember watching like Terminator, I think Conan the Barbarian. He had a thing for Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't
Oh, okay.
know.
That's interesting. Oh, did you ever watch?
Mostly action, especially when the kids got sent to bed. It's like more adult movies. I don't remember anything else. So
I read that he liked the movie titled Lawnmower Man. Did you ever watch that?
yes,
And I've never. What's it about? And do you think it relates to David Koresh in any way?
it's been a really long time. I want to say it was something to do with a guy somehow being his brain connected to a lawnmower.
Okay.
Kill people.
Wow.
It was pretty terrible.
Okay.
I do remember seeing it, but I don't know if it was there or
Okay.
after.
Do you have any idea why he might have been showing Arnold Schwarzenegger movies and also any more movies? Do you have any idea about that?
I don't remember anybody talking about it or saying this is why we're watching. I think it was just entertaining.
Okay.
I guess.
Did you have to sit through the Bible studies he was and did you as a kid absorb any of that or not?
Sure, absorbed quite a bit. I mean, I sat through hundreds of them with him and other people. I remember early on, it was before, I think part of the time after the shootout with George Roden and all that stuff. At some point, we lived with the Wendell family on the property. And my parents were gone somewhere else. I don't know where, but when we did study with them, like church, um, we would have to remember 3 to 6 lines of scripture or something from the Bible study. And if we didn't, we could recite it from memory, which I never could. We got whooped
Oh,
every time.
by Mark Wendell, you got whooped?
Yep. Mark and JB.
JD. Were they living in one of the little houses when you were living with them, or was that in the big house?
I think that was when it was small houses.
Yeah.
It was really early on where the church was still by the front gate.
Oh yeah. That was a church that was left over from the Davidians. Okay.
Yeah. It was kind of run down. Hot.
Okay.
But yeah. That was, they were really strict,
Oh, they were.
that family. Particular. They treated us just like their kid. They didn't do it, they got whooped. If we didn't, we got it.
Okay. And when you got whooped with the paddle that called the helper or
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was kind of like a small, thin board. It looked like what you picture a paddle being.
Like, well, and did it hurt?
I mean, not really, but hurts your feelings more when you're a kid.
Yeah, yeah. So, Uh, and what kind of things did you observe David Koresh doing?
I mean, I remember the Bible studies. Playing guitar, some of the barbecues behind the building, uh, him out in the driveway, playing with his new dirt bike, flipping it on himself.
Oh,
Yeah, he was doing wheelies up and down in front of the building. He did one, and we had like the gravel had been uh, I guess they had some more gravel laid out there and spread, so it was all lumpy and loose. Did a wheelie and that big bike just laid back on top of him. His back was all messed up,
Wow.
all scratched everywhere.
And was that one of the motorcycles or they did that in, or what kind of
Yeah.
vehicle?
It's like a really big dirt bike. It's like one of the ones you see like street legal.
Did it have two wheels? Okay. Well, and what's your opinion of David Koresh?
Well, I put it in the group many times, but my opinion is just a man who probably started out with good intentions and he let the power and control go to his head and use that to fulfill his desires. Yeah, that's pretty much the way I see it.
That's a good observation. That's good, especially from an eyewitness. So that's a good observation. It's important to know. Is there anything else you said about life at Mount Carmel and the people and or David Koresh or anybody else?
Aside from David and all of the strictness and rules, it was a great place to grow up. Everybody was nice. I don't remember ever disliking a single person except him. Like my grandpa was the one who usually had to spank me when I got in trouble. But I mean, you would think we would dislike the disciplinarian, but David was always the one putting up to him. So if I got in trouble for breaking sometimes the smallest rule, the stupidest thing imaginable, I'd get whooped in, sent to bed with no dinner a couple of times, grounded to my room for days on end, like for staying up to watch a movie. It just seemed pretty strict, overboard. I would have punished my kids like that. Never have.
Yeah. Oh, did they were you ever sent to school, like to public school, or was it all homeschooling?
Yeah, I think because my birthday's in January, my mom uh, she attempted to put me in school when I was 4. And they said it was too early, my birthday was too late. So she homeschooled for a year. And then the next year, she went to put me in kindergarten. I mean, in first grade. So I did kindergarten already. And they didn't think the school didn't think it was a good idea. So they stuck me back in kindergarten where I was bored. And then I think we lived on the property probably when I was 3rd or 4th grade. So we lived at the other house at that point. And I think 4th grade was the year of the grade. So yeah. There was quite a few of us that went to public school. I remember riding the bus from Mount Carmel, standing out front near there was piles of rafters that had been pre-built and dropped off by the gate. Standing up there messing with a wasp nest on one of them, and a wasp flew out, stung me in the chin. So I think that's why I remember wait for the bus that
Yeah, yeah.
any other time, but for that
All right. I think that's all the questions I have. Matt Wittmer's here. Do you have a question you want to ask?
Do you have any memories of just the property, of things on the property, or experiences of being around either the construction there or the animals or
Oh, see, early on, got memories of uh, building a tree house across the street from some of the little small houses when they were still there. And I was born in the very last house just before the dairy barn, and actually have memories. I don't know how, but I have memories of being a toddler, basically. My dad uh, extracting the honey from the bees that he had out there. I remember the lakes freezing over one winter, so a big group went down to the smaller one, and yeah, everybody was attempting to walk out on it, but it kept cracking. So there were some of the guys were throwing like big rocks, and bricks to break it. One of the bricks just kind of stuck in the ice, just sat there. So it stayed there till the water thawed out and it sunk to the bottom.
Mhm.
At the big lake, my dad used to go fishing there. He built a dock on one side that went way out of the water. When we go down there for night fishing, that year that the lakes froze, he wouldn't let us walk on it. Said it was dangerous, so he put us in a little metal john boat, and he walked on it. He drove us all the way across the lake, just so we could have fun.
That's nice.
I remember when we first got go-karts, four-wheelers, a couple of little dirt bikes. The first go-kart, most of the kids were too small to drive it. So David had me get in and give about 10 of the little kids a ride up to the gate back to the building. That's
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm. I remember following him around the building whenever I wanted something. I wanted to do something. I knew I had permission from him. Follow him around the building, trying to talk to him, mostly ignoring me, but occasionally he would turn back and say, all right now, all right now. Yeah, we pretty much didn't exist to him. Yeah.
do you remember much about the big house, the big building, or
Oh yeah. I remember when it was basically just the ground floor, just the floor. We didn't have any walls up on it yet. And going up there with my dad, and he was kind of like teaching everybody kind of this is how you do this, how you do that. I remember him like he was the only one that knew how to do electrical. So he started running wires and teaching everybody how to connect the wires to the plugs and the light switches and how to run them and everything. Uh, don't really know why, and I was confused on why, because when they were building it and they started to put up the front wall, they put two stacks of cinder blocks and filled it with concrete all the way across the front wall of the building. Never knew why exactly that was there. So when the day of the raid happened and we started hearing shooting, we knew that those bricks were in the wall, and that was probably the only safe place for us, was to just lay flat. So that's what we did. And instead of you would think you would run away from the outside wall, but we knew those bricks were in there, so we got as close to the wall as we could.
Yeah, thanks for confirming that. I've read that it was something like that, so you've just confirmed it and described it. And I know as a boy, you probably didn't go up on the second floor, right? Or because I'm curious if they did the same thing with the windows on the second floor.
I remember, I mean, we weren't there because we didn't live on the property at the time they were building it, so we were there when we weren't at school or at home with our parents, or whenever dad went over there to win. So I got to see some of the construction and help with some of it. But I don't know. I don't remember anything about the second floor having that up there.
Do you remember anything about the side that went underneath? That went underneath to where the storm shelter was, or
Oh yeah. Like the very end room in the men's quarters. I want to say that was Jamie Castillo's room. Probably him and a few other guys, maybe, because it was fairly large. It was like as wide as a set of rooms on this side of the hall and this side, plus the space for the hallway. So it's quite a big room, and they just kind of shoot over that end wall. But you'd walk in, and about 2 foot from the wall was the little handle to the little hatch in the floor, and you open it up, and it was just a hole. See a ladder, and then you can see right into the top of the end of the school bus. You go down there, go through the bus, and come out the front on the side, and it would step down a few steps into the concrete tunnel that led to the shelter.
Mhm.
It was pretty cool.
So you had the trap door and it went to the school bus,
Yeah.
and then it went to another tunnel that led to the shelter that they were building over there. Are you aware that the men ever practiced shooting weapons inside the school bus, buried school bus,
Shooting inside.
like target practice inside that bus? Or was there more than one bus that was buried?
That's the only one that I know of.
Okay.
No, I never heard that.
your dad helped work on it and build it.
Yeah.
So whenever you go over there, it was whenever it was being built or being constructed, and so he was working on it. Do you have any other memories of like what your dad was working on the building, or helping with, or who he was working with?
Not really. I just remember him. He was showing people how to do the plumbing and how and where to put the wiring, and how to do all the connections and do the switches, and just kind of like, I mean, he was doing some of it because I remember helping him like pull wires through the walls, through the studs to hook them up. But I think he was more of in a teaching role, because there was no way that he was going to be able to do all of that stuff and not live there and work full time for the post office.
Right.
So I remember him teaching a group of people that was kind of following us around. Just some of the random people who were there early on. I don't really remember anybody actual person. I don't remember anybody's names or.
And was that the lake that you mentioned going out there? There were always those two lakes.
Yeah, there was always the big one down to the right of the property. The dam washed out, so it's not even. I don't think it's holding water now. It all washed out, grew trees in it. But that was the big one my dad used to put his boat in. And then there was a little small round one, maybe an oval shape, like directly from the building, but they dammed it off bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, so that lake grew and grew and grew until it was probably 5 times the length. So they put another dam across and made that little tiny one. But originally, that one in the middle, it was just a little round one in the back corner, and you could see for a long time. You could see where it was because you could see the ring of cut off trees sticking out of the light.
Now, I've always read that back in 93 or so, there was no running water. But what was well, let me first ask you, at what point did you and your parents and your siblings move on to Mount Carmel to live there? And I know you were a little kid, but do you remember about when?
Well, I know I was born there, and then we moved, I think, when I was 2, and then probably around 7 or 8, we moved back. Probably 89, 90,
Mhm.
something like that.
And when you moved back, did you move into a little house or move into the big house?
So like the big house was here. All the little houses used to follow the road to go back. But just before the main house was a long, kind of looked like an apartment building, but there was 2 like living house apartments on the end, and then a big storage building all connected together. So we lived in the first little apartment, and then Kathy Schroeder and her kids lived in the other one. And I think Mike lived separately in his camper.
Mike Schroeder?
Yeah,
Mhm.
across the driveway, because at that point, men and women were married anymore. Couples were separated, so we lived in that with our mom. She lived in that with her kids, and my dad lived in the building with my grandpa.
But then at some point, you kids moved into the building.
Yeah, when mom thought David was gonna choose her as his next wife, she said, "Nope, I'm out." She packed her stuff and she begged my dad to go with her. He refused, so she left on her own, and we woke up to an empty apartment. So the next day we moved in. Heather moved upstairs with
Judy?
JD, I believe.
JD.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we stayed in there until
Everything.
93.
So now I want to ask you about the water situation. So when you were living in the house, the big house, was there running water?
There was water tanks behind the building,
Mhm.
or I remember getting water from the well a couple of times. Like they would pump it out.
So there was water in the well.
Yeah, David had somebody came out and installed like some type of pump to where he could turn it on, because all the old stuff was non-existent or didn't work. So there was like a pump, and then a pipe or something. It had a water spout, so you go out there, fill up buckets for the kitchen and stuff like that.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, because for a long time I didn't know that pump was even working at all. And then somebody mentioned it that I interviewed, about a week ago, and you just confirmed what they said. So
Yeah.
thank you.
That's where they got the water that was in the storage tanks. So early on they didn't have the storage tanks, but eventually they got them and put them up off the ground,
I see.
and then they would pump the water in there.
So that you had a well with a pump, but it wasn't connected to the house.
No pipes, no running water anywhere. No bathrooms. I remember going out basically just out of boredom, and I was supposed to be one of the guys, and they were digging a hole, so I went dug outhouse holes. I was usually like the last one in because I could dig it deeper, and then they could pull me out.
Oh,
So they just reached out in there, plucked me out.
wow.
But it was something to do, something different.
Mhm.
And then you've known, Clive Doyle long time because he's been instrumental in
Oh, yeah.
most all of the memorials. But do you have memories of Clive as a child on the property? Because he had been
Not really.
the printer there, and he had always been around. But I often wonder if he had been involved with the kids there.
Well, when I was probably in kindergarten, first grade, uh, mom used to drop us off out at the property to stay with Clive and Edna. So basically, she was babysitting us till it was time to get on the bus.
Yeah.
That's really the only memory. I remember seeing him in the house
Yeah.
sometimes in the mornings, but that's about it.
Okay.
No actual interactions
Yeah.
with most of the people, especially the older
Yeah.
ones. I had lots of interaction with Tilly though.
Oh, Tilly Friesen. Oh, yeah. You want to tell your story about Tilly Friesen?
Yeah. the the one about Palestine, my brother and I decided to go exploring in the woods, and we just probably went a good 100 yards or so into the woods away from all the houses where everybody was. And then all of a sudden, there's kind of like a clearing in the trees, and you can see the sun hitting the ground, and Tilly's just dancing around naked as a jaybird. We're like, oh no, let's go.
That's funny.
Wasn't something we had ever expected to find. Just looking for whatever.
Yeah.
Something cool.
And she was probably in her 60s or so back
Yeah, I
then.
think she was a little frail old lady.
She was getting her vitamin D.
And she had a blanket laid out on the ground, looked like a little picnic kind of thing, and she was just dancing around like a fairy in the woods.
That's good.
But out at Mount Carmel, oh, every time she would see any of us walk by, or if we made the mistake of knocking on the door, for whatever reason, she would try to give us these drinks. I think she called them chlorophyll drinks.
Uh-huh.
And it was basically just blended up grass,
Grass.
weeds that she went out and picked, mixed it in the blender.
Yeah.
All that stuff it was awful. Oh,
Just tastes like grass.
yeah. Oh man. And she'd be like, it's good for you. Drink some more, drink some more. And you're like trying not to be rude and not to throw up.
Well, yeah, let me ask you about the food and the diet out at Mount Carmel. I mean, did you know, were there any strict practices about food out there?
I remember at some point when I was little, we became vegetarians. So we didn't eat any kind of meat. And then little by little, we went away from like eating tofu and what, a sprout.
Sprouts? Yeah.
I forget what kind of plant it's from, but they would put something on a piece of bread and put sprouts on it, and that's what my mom would give me for a snack. Eventually, I grew to like continued eating it for until this day, but little by little, they started bringing it was okay to eat certain kinds of fish. Then it was okay to eat chicken. Then it was okay to eat beef again. Never pork, but all the meals they cooked out there was no adding anything. There was no seasoning, no sugar. So it was just plain how it came, cook it and eat it. So sometimes we would see what they were making for dinner. And like, so Mark and I would go fishing if possible, and we'd catch a couple of bass in the tank and bring it up. And what's her name? I want to say it was Floricida.
Yeah, Floricida.
From-
Oh, I forget.
So Nobi.
Sonobe. She was for the Philippines.
Philippines, yes. I wanted to make sure I was talking about the right person. Yeah.
Mhm.
Sita was usually always working in the kitchen. So we would take it up to the back of the kitchen and just say, "Hey, can you cook these for us for dinner?" And she said, "Yeah, as long as I can have the eggs." So
Oh,
we
okay.
would eat the fish eggs if they had them, or we would give her like half of one of the fish or something, and she would batter and fry them. And we'd have fish for dinner.
That's good.
And usually when we did that, we would go out in the field in the front or in the back, big trash bags, and fill them up with turnip greens, collard greens, whatever's growing wild out in the field.
Mhm.
And we take them up there and they boil up a big giant tray of it and add that to the dinner.
Okay.
Not very good plain, but it's something different sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, what about the Sabbath? So Adventists don't, Seventh-day Adventists consider Saturday the Sabbath and generally do not work on the Sabbath. So I mean, was there a big difference in activities on the Sabbath? What was done on the Sabbath?
As far as I remember, nobody did anything aside from preparing a small meal, which was always watermelon and popcorn. As far as I remember, that's the only thing we ever ate on Saturday.
Wow.
Every Saturday it was watermelon and popcorn.
Yeah, that's not very filling.
No. So from sunup, I think it was sunup to sundown, that was all that was allowed. Just basically water and a little bit of fiber.
Well, that's hard on kids because you're hungry, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I guess most of us would pig out as much as possible just to try to fill up.
Mhm. Like the day before.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we'd be eating. Me and my brother used to sneak in the kitchen all the time.
Because you were hungry.
Yeah. I mean, it was 3 meals a day, but then there was no snack time or anything like that for a little kid. And we knew how we lived when we were at the other house. So if we were starving or not starving, but if we wanted a snack and we knew we'd get away with it, we would sneak into the cooler and get into the hot dog packs.
Yeah, a
So we'd have a couple of hot dogs and
couple of cold hot dogs.
we'd get away with it. I know. I don't think I ever got caught.
Can you describe the cooler? I know the cooler was inside that concrete room or the former church vault, but I've never been clear on how big it was.
I actually remember it being in that bowl.
Okay.
Was the kitchen in the inside of the big house? Was it painted? Was there art up? Do you remember if
I still don't remember.
it was just
I just remember the hallway, and then once you go around the corner,
mhm,
that was kind of like the serving counter,
mhm.
and then off to the left was the big dining room area with all the tables.
And there are tables in there.
Well, I'm pretty sure right behind the serving counter on the right side was the entrance to the cooler. Uh, on the left side down a little hallway was the entrance to the bunker. I don't remember it being in there. Pretty sure it was,
So the cooler was not in there.
I think it was directly in front of it.
Okay.
Like the opening was there, but there's still, I don't know, 10 or 15 feet of a concrete wall. I'm pretty sure the cooler was in that corner.
Mhm. And was it a walk-in cooler?
Yeah, it was probably 8x10, 8x12. It was longer to walk in than it was wide, but it had big shelves of stuff in there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I remember.
Do you remember a piano being inside near the front door or that telephone room?
Piano.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I remember the telephone room because that was like my grandpa's office.
Okay.
Like if you were there in the daytime, probably 9 times out of 10 you'd find him in that room. It's
Mhm.
I called it his office. I never called it the telephone room because
Okay.
Grandpa was always in there at a little desk, and then he had to get his telephone.
Okay.
As far as I know, the only one that went out from most of the building.
Yeah.
And I'm sure David probably had a phone, and then Wayne's office did too.
Mhm.
You got, is that all your questions?
That's pretty much it.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming and we appreciate it. And, you know, you gave us a lot of good insights into life at Mount Carmel and also the facilities there. So thank you very much.
Well,